Welcome to our today's hybrid event, Digital Marketing for Industrial Products. And today we have two speakers. They will cover two closely connected topics: how to build your digital visibility in China and how to protect what you have built. Our first speaker is Jonathan Kalman, founder and CEO of MBH. And he has 12 years of B2B and industrial brands experience in the Chinese market, helping companies turn a very complex digital environment into practical, commercial, memorable experience. So today he will help us to focus on which channel matters, how online and offline combine, and also the budget and timeline for your expectation. So Jonathan, the floor is yours.
So I already received the introduction, and nice to meet all of you here in the room and all that joining online. Nice to meet you as well. So we will cover, as we heard previously, a bit more how the Chinese digital landscape works in practice. We will also look at some key channels for the B2B side that might be different if you're a consumer brand. There might be certain that are more relevant for you as a B2B company. And then we also will have some cost and budget estimations, because everyone is, of course, interested of knowing how much does a lead roughly cost on different platforms in China. If I need to start doing something, what am I to expect in terms of investment, and how long timeline do I need to prepare to do this, different phases and so on. So this we will share some information on as well, and also how to build a proper digital setup that actually can generate qualified leads long term. And then we also have some practical examples that we'll cover to relate to. And then I know you are allowed to ask questions online. We will have a Q&A session in the end of the presentation. But jumping in a bit with market understanding. So why does this matter? Like why is it relevant for companies to understand how they're being presented online in China? First of all, I would like to start emphasize governance perspective. Governance is, of course, crucial for all companies. So this is something from digital-wise in China might be neglected for some time when it comes to corporate top management, because China might be performing quite good from a commercial point of view. But looking at it from a governance point of view, it's more and more crucial nowadays, of course, to just have ownership of and understanding what are we saying today about our company, what platforms are we talking on, and what are we saying? Because this is something that sometimes could be a bit big disconnection from what the Chinese operation are doing versus maybe what global headquarters and Marcom and sales from global side are thinking we're saying in the market, even though sales might be good. So this is something that usually there's a gap. And then, of course, Chinese is very digital. Everyone working with China knows that they are not using the platforms we are using in the West. And the platforms they are using in China, they might be using even more extensively than the ones we are using in the West. So this adds up, of course, like if you're not visible at all, do you really exist here in China? And this applies quite good to a lot of traditional companies that might be in China for many years, even decades. And they have followed European clients to offer solutions and services delivered in China. But now, of course, that business still exists. But a lot of companies are looking for future growth, and that tend not to be selling to other European companies that want the products to be delivered in China. Instead, they would like to be able to sell their goods to Chinese buyers. And then, of course, it's more and more important that you can position your value proposition to these Chinese buyers online, as they will go to the different platforms for finding out about the latest solutions, the latest trends, and so on. And just very briefly, like the digital ecosystem on the left screen here, you can see the apps that most of us are usually using in Europe. So it's videos, YouTube, search engines, Google. You have newsfeed, Twitter, like X. You have a video platform like Douyin or the TikTok, the international version. You have Instagram as more the lifestyle. And then, of course, you have LinkedIn. And then you have other kind of magazines, business medias like Financial Times and so on. But none of them are, of course, being used in China for different kind of reasons. Then on the right side, you could see some equivalent versions that people in China might be using. So then instead you have the search engine, it's Baidu, you have video platforms that is of course TikTok, but it's Douyin and it's completely separate. We really want to emphasize that. So they're not linked together, different algorithms and everything. And then you have another video platform, Bilibili, very suitable for having as a video library equivalent to maybe YouTube and so on. And then you have Red or Xiaohongshu, Little Red Book, it's the Instagram, Pinterest version. Maybe not that suitable for B2B companies, but really want to mention it because it's the biggest lifestyle platform in China. And then, of course, WeChat. I would assume everyone in this seminar have heard about WeChat or using it. WeChat is, of course, a super important part, but it's not the only platform to think about and work with. And then the last thing here that we'll mention is, of course, AI, LLMs, Chinese AI search platforms. This is something that is quite new on a global stage, of course, that the amount of people are using it is just increasing month by month. And in China, we're talking about over 500 million monthly active users currently on the different AI platforms in China. The thing here to consider is that they are not using ChatGPT or Gemini, or they are using Chinese AI platforms like Doubao, Yuanbao, DeepSeek. A lot of people have heard, of course, about. So this is something to bear in mind, that you as a company, there's a lot of platforms that you need to think about, and you need to be selective on which one do you actually decide on pursuing from your company side. So hopefully there will be some questions now among everyone, but we will see during the presentation that which one should you focus on and which one is more essential than others and how do they complement each other. Just another connection to Europe, that how the different platforms might operate together. So we think about search engine. Of course, in Europe, we have Google and we have ChatGPT and Gemini as AI platforms. In China, it's of course, it's Baidu. And then you have the different Chinese AI platforms I mentioned. Websites role in Europe, it might be more information. You can, of course, reach out to the sales and be about us or contact us. But in China, it is actually still even more important, I would say, for B2B companies to have a professional website catering for the Chinese market in Chinese, optimized from a speed point of view for users within mainland China's border, because a lot of the procurement departments, engineers, business development representatives are using and relying a lot still on traditional search engines like Baidu or Bing. And then they will find you and go to your website, and they will fill in forms. So you can get contact information and establish an initial contact. So this is something that sometimes being neglected a bit. People think, do we need a website for China? The short recommendation is yes, you do. If you are an industrial B2B company, you should definitely have a website in Chinese working for the Chinese market. Social, a lot of branding, of course, in the West, maybe not that direct linking. Of course, LinkedIn, you can have enabling, facilitate engagement with your specific personas that you want to talk to. In China, it's the WeChat is, of course, the main one. And here, WeChat, of course, have WeCOM as a CRM function, very suitable for companies to leverage. Looking at the trust part, brand reputation, it's similar like in China, but they will talk much more about content. We'll go through that a bit later. The importance of PR and proof. And proof in this context is cases. Proof of concept, like actually in cases being delivered in China, for China. That is very, very important to emphasize. And it's something that companies tend to maybe not really utilize all the time because they might be in China for some time, but they have not really created this kind of content that is China for China. So then instead they refer to cases that is regarding projects overseas. So that could be for Europe or North America or other parts of Asia, even though they have done things in China. And then the funnel is more linear here in the West, but in China, it's the ecosystem, as you will understand during the presentation today, is much more isolated, fragmented in that sense. So you need to work with different platforms parallel in different phases of the customer journey. So there's no easy way with one platform that will fix everything for you, unfortunately. you need to look at this from a 360 point of view. And that's why this is one way to showcase like how is an online customer journey typically looking like in today's business climate. This is, of course, something that needs to be revised on an ongoing basis, as some platforms might come and go in the importance and the using. But just reflecting here, if you are a procurement department or a business development person or engineer, someone that are looking for a new solution on your new equipment or some kind that we think our European company would like to sell to someone in China. Then just relating back to like the website here and how that's linking to the search engine Baidu, still of course very important to have that kind of connection. WeChat, as you see, is still here. WeChat is super important for the brand. However, it cannot be one island. They need to be connected with other parts. And the reason why that is because the ecosystem is very fragmented. So WeChat is very, very closed system, meaning that the thing you publish on WeChat is pretty much only being indexed and showed on WeChat. So the things you publish on WeChat will not be showed on the Baidu search engine. And also now with LLMs, like Toba or DeepSeek, the things on WeChat will not be shown on the LLMs. So there's very low authority and indexation power currently on Baidu search engine and also other LLMs. So this makes it, of course, a bit challenging if you're a company and you have until today thought that you have made a home run because you have had your WeChat account and you publish a lot of stuff on the WeChat. That will not be that successful long term. So that is why you also need to work with third-party medias like industry media or Zhihu, like very big community Q&A platform. Those two, industry media and Zhihu, have a very strong authority and credibility among the LLMs in China, also on Baidu search engine. So if you can feed and distribute media coverage here, you will also get long-term exposure on search engines in China. So this all adds up. And then, of course, we have the video platforms like Douyin, Bilibili. WeChat, of course, has its own video format, WeChat channels inside the account. So here, a note about this one is more the importance of video. Video is becoming like not essential, it's more like a must, actually, for B2B companies in China. Here it tends to be a bit of a gap of what kind of formats is you need to develop. But here a recommendation is to use what you have, but you should always put Chinese subtitle, or if you have speaking voices, like a storytelling voice, you should do voiceover to Chinese, of course. And you can usually edit them quite nicely to be adapted to the format of Bilibili or is WeChat or if it's Douyin. If it's Douyin, of course, you need to have another kind of length of the videos and have some animations or some other audio and so on. But the video is super, super important for industrial companies in China. As a lot of the people in the decision-making process, they're, of course, consuming information on Douyin. So it's a possible touch point. And the sales process tends to be quite long, from a few months to a year to several years, of course, before they actually make a decision. So it's a marathon. So we want to enable several hundreds of different touch points to these different kind of audiences during their customer journey. So this is something we could enable by working with all of these different platforms in a combination. Connecting to the AI part, have already mentioned a few times, but there's one platform here that is not on the screen that everyone works with China actually work with. It's WeChat. So it's one way of showcasing that WeChat will not actually help you that much with AI visibility, and AI visibility is becoming much more important in China, same as we see in the West. So the similar kind of trend. Then there's a mix here of you can have your official brand, of course, on your official website. You can have your official account on Zhihu. You could have official account on Bilibili. You can have on Weibo. But otherwise, there's a lot of things related to third party. So could you get articles about your business or your solutions or your company published on relevant and highly reputed medias in China? That is a very good, effective way of actually indexing information about you. So it will not be regarded as it comes from the brand. So it will be shown, but it will still be about you. And you can still, of course, cater it from the brand side. What kind of messaging do you want to be presented here? Yes. But all in all, just taking one step back, we have, of course, now talked about a lot about digital, and that is, of course, the main topic of today. But it's B2B companies. We still want to meet people face to face, and trade shows is crucial for existing companies doing business in China, and also companies are entering the Chinese market to establish good relationships with potential partners and distributors and customers. So that is why trade shows is, of course, super important. It will be for the over time being, like, for sure. So it's more about thinking here, like, how could we leverage our digital infrastructure related to a trade show? Because the traditional way of doing a trade show in terms of paying for the exhibition fees, having people attending it, flight tickets, hotels, dinners, all of these things is, of course, things you still should do in some degree. But you should also think about how to actually position ourselves online connected to this trade show. How can we possibly enable that people actually sign up for a one-on-one consultation about our specific equipment prior to the trade show? So we don't only limit ourselves to the people that we would actually meet face to face at the trade show. So there's a lot of things that can be done prior to the trade show. And the same applies, of course, after the trade show. There's a lot of things you can communicate on the market online, on official platforms and non-official platforms about your participation on the different kind of trade shows you've been attending. All in all, to just leveraging on this traditional offline activity, but not limiting yourself to the people you actually meet at the stand. But the ones you actually meet at the trade show. So if people are engaging with you at the trade show, of course, they will probably most likely scan the QR code of your company's business card that's a link to your WeChat account. They will check your website. They will do some initial search on the Baidu search, and they will do some searches on LLMs, the different AI platforms in China. They probably look for some kind of relevant cases suitable for their needs related to China. And then in the end, of course, they will probably follow you on WeChat or other official platforms, but for sure the WeChat account. The thing is, if you're not present when they're doing this kind of background due diligence check, it might influence their decision of if they actually would like to follow your business or not, or establish an initial contact. So that's why it's so important that you, from the company side, take ownership and have governance of how do you present yourself on these different platforms, because it could be a deal breaker, even though you meet them there, but they will say, okay, but are you really doing business in China? Are you really interested in the Chinese market? Because I cannot find anything about you from an official accounts point of view, from the brand side. And then related to this is also linking to the trade shows. There are, of course, a lot of packages that you as a company could decide to invest together from the host of the exhibition. This can be quite sometimes a good additional, depending on the budget that you have to work with. But then it's typically getting some kind of banner ads on the exhibition's website, or it could be on their, like the exhibition's WeChat account and so on. It could be that they're sending out, you're part of a newsletter send out. You're listed, of course, in a more extensive way on the exhibitor list and so on with different banners. Overall, like emphasizing and improving the exposure you get related to the specific trade show. This can be okay to do sometimes, but it tends to that you should have already a lot of other things in order and in place before you allocate funds to do this, because usually those things being offered here gives you quite low, or almost the targeting of the exposure is quite limited. The tracking of who is actually watching this message, who is clicking what, is quite limited also, and the pricing tend to be quite aggressive from the organizations arranging this. So it can be good for like visibility, but that would, if you have limited budget to allocate, usually recommended to instead invest in own platforms. So you should have your own WeChat account, and you can run different kind of promotions on your own WeChat account. You can put up a landing page, and you can promote that landing page on Baidu. You can distribute different kind of stories on relevant PR articles, relevant medias in China individually, and so on. So that is something to consider All, of course, relates back to what kind of budget you have in mind. But it tends to be, if you have not invested previously that much in digital related to trade shows, not recommended maybe to put all those eggs in the basket for this kind of trade show of digital offerings. Moving on to overall channels and ecosystem. So we already touched on a bit about like the search engine, the website, about content we touch more here about, and then overall a bit more ecosystem. But I want to go reconnect to some of them. So because there's a lot of information here, some of you listening probably are a bit new to the market, some are more experienced. So we'll go into a bit more, we'll start with the search here. So why is search any relevant for companies nowadays? And why is it so important for companies to have understanding of what information is being presented about them, depending on what people are searching? There's, of course, around 60 to 70% of the B2B journey actually starts on the search engines. So this could be one of the first touch points of your company, how it's being presented to a potential buyer in China. So here it could be typical errors is that they might even know your company name and they type in your company name correctly, but they don't find any website because the website you have is not made for China. And sometimes they maybe find the website, but it's so slow because it's not hosted in China and it's not in Chinese. Or it could be that you have distributors. And distributors are claiming things that maybe you don't really know that they're claiming. This is a very reoccurring situation. So that's why it's so important with the governance that having a good SOP with your existing internal commercial team and marketing team and external partners of what things are being conveyed and communicated about your business online in China. Because it's very often the case that from the brand side, they don't know what is being said about your product from the distributor side. And then it could be that your own platforms is not being showed up. So that is like a good starting point. And then we have SEO versus ads. Of course, SEO long term is of course organic. We all want that. We don't want to pay for like a specific keywords. But what we do know is that when you are investing in paid search, so like different keywords and display ads on Baidu, there's usually high intent buyers that will be typing very, very specific keyword searches. So they are in that sense more likely to be very interested in your specific offering. So that makes it worth maybe actually investing in paid ads on search because they are more high intent buyers that you can enable contact with. And then related to search, until now is primarily talked about the traditional search, so SEO and SEM on Baidu, and also Bing that could be relevant for companies. But then you have the LLMs, the AI visibility part. It's of course super crucial here as well. And the reason why we see for a lot of the clients we work with on a regular basis with paid search that big drop in traffic from paid search. And it's not like they have stopped using the internet. They have just gone somewhere else to find this information. And one of the explanations is that they have started to use the AI platforms in China very more extensively. So this is a big potential, a lot of untapped opportunities for companies of seizing the opportunity of just taking control of certain keyword searches, of making sure your company is being showed in that context. Because currently there's a lot of companies that they have barely knowledge about this in Europe, and they have even less understanding of this in China. So here this actually exists a first mover advantage for a lot of companies that want to take market shares and position themselves by making sure that they are being introduced in a correct way on the AI searches. Website, once again, still very important and crucial for industrial B2B companies. It should be, of course, goes without saying maybe, have language, like simplified Chinese than for mainland China, preferably hosted in China on a server in China with ICP, Internet Content Protocol license. This you can only apply for if you have a Chinese entity. So if you have a subsidiary in China, then of course you can utilize that infrastructure. There are, of course, other options to have it hosted in Hong Kong. Then you will not get, you can get quite good speed from a technical point of view with different technical solutions. However, you will not get same SEO indexation as you do from Baidu if you have an ICP license, since Baidu is actively giving you negative points if you are hosted outside of China. If you lack an ICP license, you will not get the same ranking organically as a website that has an ICP license and then is hosted on a server in China. So you can always fix the speed issue by having a website outside of China. There's different solutions for this with different price tags. But when it comes to organic indexation, this will be more difficult for a company if you have it hosted outside of China. But then, of course, thinking about what you would put on the website, you should not always just clone the global website and put it on China. You really need to think about what is it that we really want to inform the market about in China. And then that is the message you should convey and put on your Chinese website. So it could be, for example, that you are a company group with 4 divisions, but it's just one division that is very critical and operate in China. Then it could make sense to emphasize that specific division and that their value proposition on the website, because the other divisions may not be that relevant for the market. And of course, once again, here, like the case studies, China for China content, different kind of certifications that from a Chinese buyer's point of view are very important in their evaluation process. And then you can actually get good conversion on a website. I really want to emphasize that because there's so many companies that have not made a China website that is a B2B company from Europe. They only have a WeChat account. Strongly recommend to consider having a website presence as well. And that leads us into WeChat. Of course, WeChat, everyone just needs to have it. This is the brand hub for companies working with China. So, and the companies that operating in China that do not have an entity in China, they might have a distributor model. They can own and register a WeChat account by their European company. So your European company can own the WeChat account legally. It will be a service account. There will not be any differences in terms of functionalities, as if you would own it through a Chinese company. You can open an ad account linked to it, so you can invest in paid promotion that you can then do linking to lead forms and so on. So from a legal point of view, you can own these accounts through your European entity if you prefer, or you can have it through your Chinese entity, of course. But very good for content distribution. The important part here is, of course, to linking back to the overall communication strategy for China. What topics are we to talk about? What is our key message for China? What content pillars are we talking about? And then convert that into a communication plan for 12 months, divided usually on 3 months basis. Important to emphasize here, once again, the things you publish on WeChat, it will be limited to people on WeChat, meaning that the articles will not be showed on other platforms. However, the sales team, the sales rep, the distributors, your business partners are, of course, all very engaged on the WeChat. So here it's super important that you, from the company side, have knowledge about what do you put on your WeChat account. How do we publish it? Are we following our governance point of view? Are we ticking all the boxes here? Are we doing this with a consistency in terms of frequency of posting? What kind of topics are we talking about? So all in all, to make it as professional as possible. And then linking to WeChat, I also want to take a few seconds just mentioning the CRM aspect, that you can have a CRM within WeChat. It's called WeCOM. So this is an inbuilt CRM system, part of the WeChat tool. This is a good upside for the company side, because legally the company will own the account, and all contacts that are being established through the WeCom is linked to the company. Otherwise, there's a lot of examples where the companies having sales reps having one-on-one discussions with their existing or potential customers on their private WeChat account. So from a legal point of view, and just making sure you have ownership of everything from the company side, you can have an official CRM system within the WeChat account. And then, of course, you can link that information later on to your global CRM system. If you would be using, let's say, Salesforce or something, it is possible, of course, to make the Chinese sales team, the business development team, to use an environment they are used to use on WeChat, and then you, from global side, you can get the information to your global system. Good thing is also if you're doing ads, paid campaigns on WeChat with a WeCom, is that from the marketing side, you can do targeted media buy with lead forms, and if someone fills out the form, the sales rep can then instantly initiate a one-on-one discussion with that person, with that lead on WeCom. So that will reduce a lot of the steps in the sales process. So there are a lot of pros with it, but then of course you need to decide on a strategy and enable this opening the CRM function of WeCom on WeChat. So yes, videos here, once again, very important, but you need to think about adapting it to the different platforms. If you have long videos, tutorials, that could be like 30 minutes, 60 minutes, you put them on Bilibili, you add subtitle. If you are more like on the WeChat or Douyin, it should be shorter videos. Douyin specifically like 30, 60 seconds long, adding some different kind of animations that is used in the Chinese business culture, different kind of audios and so on. And WeChat, definitely leveraging the WeChat video format channels within WeChat to embed. But most importantly, do not just take videos from overseas and upload them without adding at least Chinese subtitle. And there are quite good AI tools, so it doesn't need to be like an extra cost to do that kind of localization. Then, of course, if you have Chinese-speaking colleagues in the organization, advised for them to review. So just making sure that they are actually correct before you're publishing it. But very advised, recommended to have the subtitles in the videos at least. Relating back to trade shows here, a bit like with the different channels, pre-event, on-site, and post-event, the different platforms we just mentioned here, how can we use them? Website, WeChat, etc. So this is a bit of a summary of before a trade show. As an example, you should promote the information on your own Chinese website, on your WeChat account, on your Douyin account. You can do PR distribution to trade media. You can do paid promotion on Baidu, or Bing can also be an option. You can work with different industry accounts on WeChat. Same with the media. They have, of course, websites. But if you're a maritime company or chemical company, there's a lot of niche communities that has own accounts on WeChat. These accounts you should identify by mapping them up, and then you can do editorial cooperation with them. So usually they are open to publish articles about the companies. However, it's connected to a cost. So it's paid media, but it can be very targeted. So that is something to explore and to do before a trade show. And then you have during the part, like with the QR codes, linking everything back offline to online with QR codes. QR codes is, of course, super relevant in China still. And then after a typical event, you do similar thing here as you do pre-event, but you have a recap of the content. So if you had a keynote speak at a trade show, or you introduced a new product or a new solution, or you had some certain government people visiting you, you should, of course, emphasize this in your communication after the trade show as well, because people are using the internet every day, 12 months a year. So they will go and search for you maybe in 1 month or 3 months or 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. And of course, the more information they can find about you, the better. Some examples, just relatable, like one example here, like how can you turn a trade show into a digital lead generation by doing some basic campaign settings, leveraging the WeChat, official WeChat account of the company, investing in different paid ads, linking to a lead generation lead form, actively distributing articles to relevant trade media for your specific industry. And then you can see here some examples of just impressions, how many people will actually be viewing these kind of articles, PR-wise. Lead quantity, how many people could actually fill out different kind of forms, how many medias could pick up stories like this. This all, of course, depends on like the budget invested and how long time you will run it for and so on. But just to give an indication, and this can be for very technical niche goods or solutions. Other example, investing in paid search. How could this be like giving us some results from like lead quantity wise? And then overall, because the long game here is, of course, for companies to actually go usually from 0 leads to actually having a big percentage of their all leads in China from digital. So this is the long game. Like you can do this kind of transformation journey within 1 to 3 years. But starting from few digits, like less than 5-10% of all the leads in China digital, to actually have 50, 60, 70% of all your leads in China comes from digital. So this is possible and feasible. One of the parts that companies tend to be most interested in is of course, what does this cost? Can I do it myself? Do I need someone to help me or not? You can do a lot yourself, that's for sure. Especially now with the different tools when it comes to localization, and you have usually companies, they have some own in-house team for more commercial side. It's quite common that sales or business development people end up doing some marketing activities. That could be like a short-term initial thing for sure, but if you want to make it really serious, of course, you need to have professional marketeers also doing these kind of things. And that you can, of course, have in-house and higher up, or you can work with external partners. But if we look on the investment side, like what does a lead typically cost in China? And then this is a lead in terms of someone fills out the form, maybe with my name is Jonathan, I work at NBH, and I lead this information on the form on the landing page on Baidu, or it could be on a lead form on Douyin after a video, or it could be on WeChat and so on. Then, of course, so Baidu, you could see the cost per lead range from 35 to 65 euros. WeChat ads between 40 to 80, and Douyin 30 to 70. So all of them are in like roughly similar brackets, so to say. Then, of course, it all depends for your specific company, like how complex it is, what kind of targeting can we do. And then you can also, from your own sales process with China previously, if you have that data, you can, of course, make a top-level funnel, backtracking. Like what is the conversion ratio from lead, how many that becomes marketing qualified, from marketing qualified, how many becomes sales qualified, and from the sales qualified leads, how many actually turns into like proposals, business opportunities, and how many of them are then actually later turn into real businesses. So then you can make different assumptions, and then you can make this kind of calculation funnel. So assuming that you want to sell for X amount of machines, for example, then maybe you know from experience that if this is suitable, or you can adapt that kind of methodology, like how many leads do I need 50 leads to get 1 deal? Or what is the ratio? Then you can adapt that kind of when you make this kind of forecasts, when you're making budgets. But this is what the kind of benchmark data that's available, and from our experience when it comes to what is the cost per lead. Then, of course, you need to do the qualification, that are they qualified from a sales point of view, and that is super important to address, that the sales, when they get the lead, and this is adapted to all markets, not unique for China, the commercial team making the qualification, they always need to feedback if the lead was good, because then marketing can look where did this lead come from. But if the lead is disqualified from sales, they are not interested in our solutions. They want to talk about peers, but I'm selling apples. Why am I spending my time talking with them? Then, of course, it's very important to get that feedback loop to marketing team, because then there's a lot of things you can do in your team of adjusting. So you can reduce the amount of people filling out the form that are not relevant. And this is, of course, an ongoing work for all organizations on a global level. So this is not unique to China, but just want to bring that perspective up as well. If we look on if you are you have never done this kind of digital campaign before, and just looking at if I am to start doing something, just a test, a basic pilot with minimal efforts and maybe investment levels, what could be done? Then 3,000 to 5,000 euros would be recommended. And then depending on what kind of presence you do have, you can do it using existing platforms and accounts. Or if you need to develop new presence, new accounts, or make a new landing page, it of course might be that you could fit that in this budget, or you need to add some extra. But usually like 3,000 to 5,000 euros, you can actually run a typical like intro campaign online to test out the water a bit. Then you probably will get some initial visibility for sure. That you will get. You will get awareness. You will get read quantity, and then probably you will get some lead quantity also. And then there will be what is the quality out of these leads. And there's a lot of work related to assessing that, of course. But that is like one typical starting point. Then if you have a bit more P&L available, then usually maybe around 8,000 to 15,000 euros, 8,000 to 15,000 is a good like initial budget allocation to run a first digital campaign, and that could be linked to a trade show, for example. Then you could run this for a few weeks before, during, and after, and you can make a combination of paid activities on search engines, on social media, PR distribution, and so on. And then it's more, of course, how should we do this reoccurringly? Because you cannot do this one time per year only. You need to think about having a consistency in this, and maybe no need to do. Something should be always on, reoccurringly. So every month, probably doing some paid activities on certain platforms. But depending on the season of the year, of course, and how your sales is for your specific industry, probably advised to focus on certain time of the year as well, do some extra peaks. And also avoid doing certain things connected to specific holiday seasons in China. So related to Chinese New Year holiday, like January, February, or Golden Week, first week of October, typical periods during the year when it's tend to be less effective to invest in these kind of campaigns. Can also be related to bigger consumer festivals like Singles Day or Double 12, etc. That could also influence and impact the cost for doing this kind of paid promotion, even though you are a very old school traditional B2B company. So there are things to consider when you plan to do this campaigns. But here you at least get an initial estimation of, if you have not done this, what could be an allocation of a budget to start doing this. Execution and planning, bit of time-wise, and also linking to budget here of overall, like if we are to start doing some ramp up on how we present ourselves online in China, at least 3 months starting phase is usually needed for sure. Just to establish a WeChat account, the legal part of setting up a WeChat account, we're talking a few days. This is paperwork, filing, documentation that you can turn around very quickly. However, you need to build all the articles on the WeChat account, similar to building a website. That could take a bit longer time, of course. You need to align internally. You need to develop some kind of a marketing strategy, or at least a different kind of platform strategy. So if you are working with WeChat, what should the strategy be there? And from a governance point of view, what are we entitled to say? What should we not say? How are we to use our brand guidelines? All of these kind of things. So that's usually recommended to have a thinking at least 3 months starting point. And setup-wise, this is also like if you're doing things internally, or if you have external partners helping you, there are roughly 5,000 to 15,000 euros at least being allocated here. Of course, you can make a strategy project buying external services for much higher fees than this. But being a bit more conservative in the allocation, you can get things up and running with these kind of ballpark figures if you want to do some kind of proof of concept and so on. And then having a period of around 6 months for visibility. And then there's allocation here for between 3,000 to 10,000 euros per month, depending on how aggressive and ambitious you are, of course. All of this can then later should be linked to different kind of KPIs, of course. So depending on how much you invest, you can relate back that to this kind of funnel of, if leads is what you're primarily after, then of course you can link that back to different KPIs. And then usually as you get a lot of data, because the nice thing here is that everything you do, you will get instant feedback from the market, how they respond. So depending on what you publish organically, you will see how the market reacts. If you invest in paid activities, you will get the response directly of how many clicks the banners, or how many fill out the forms, or what kind of feedback does your current sales reps or distributor get when they are out talking to existing customers and partners, as they might have read something about you on relevant trade media, or they've seen your latest article on WeChat being published, and so on. So there's a lot of hard data you get from the tools on the back end, of course, but you can also get a lot of soft value and input from your existing organization working with this in China. And then you have the last phase when you want to scale it a bit, and you can take the findings from the initial 6-12 months period, and then you can maybe ramp it up and so on. And then practical framework, some parts can be done parallel, but once again here, like in the initial phase, do a homework of actually doing a proper marketing communication strategy for China. It's very common that everyone have a commercial strategy for China, of course, but not everyone has a clear marketing strategy linking to the commercial goals. So that is very crucial. And the marketing strategy should, of course, be linking to the commercial goals. Like, what is the business targets for China? What products are we to sell? And then that should be the assumptions when you develop the marketing strategy, how to support this. Setting up the WeChat account if you don't have it, that should be done. Develop a website that is China optimized. Do an audit of your AI visibility, so you just know what is our starting point. And then, of course, develop content for China. This could be localizing, translating existing material to simplified Chinese, or it could be later on adding new articles, new content that you don't know in China yet. And then the second step here is more like the content China for China, both for leadership, video platforms. Here you can activate working more on reoccurringly, like monthly, with the AI optimization. So you could actually feed the AI platforms with different questions and answers, how you would like certain questions be answered related to your offering. Takes some work, but it's very possible to do. And content China for China here, very important and very needed. And this could be a typical example. If you have clients in China, make interviews with them. It can be written format, or it could also be in the video format, where they're actually replying on certain questions. Why did they select your solution? How is their experience with your offering, etc., etc. So, but it's from a Chinese buyer sharing their experience of you as a European goods manufacturer. And then the last phase here, after maybe 1.5 years, then of course focusing even more extensively on lead generation, running different kind of campaigns, and then expand all of this. Because during the first 6 to 18 months, you do a lot of different A and B testing. So you can evaluate what is working better, what is not working and performing as we were hoping for. So you can, once again, all is based on data. So you can really track back what went good, what was not performing so good, and then you can take the best parts and adapt going forward. You will always do some mistakes. That's how you learn. But if you don't have the courage to explore, then it will be hard to learn, because each individual industry and niche is very unique. So that's why it's hard for someone outside to know what should be best practice for you specifically. There are, of course, some best practice general terms like we show today. But then if you are a specific company offering very unique solutions to a very slim audience in China, then it needs to be tested. And then you can go back and see, did it work as we thought? Yes. Some parts maybe, some parts not, and then you can adjust. Wrap up. Been a long session now. So just some very quick, like common mistakes as I've seen during my over 10 years doing this for companies. Lack of having a proper marketing strategy. Commercial strategy, of course, they have, but marketing strategy, they don't have. They don't have a website working in China. They don't have any content that is developed with China primarily as the market. They usually only reuse content that have been developed for Europe. They don't have, and this I think is the biggest mistake a lot of companies is doing. They don't have any P&L allocation to actually do paid marketing in China. So they just rely on organic exposure. They have never proper budget allocation to run paid ads in China. And nothing comes for free. Even though you have the best product or solution, some might find it, but it's super competitive out there. So you need to push your way through the noise online. And one of the ways to doing that is, of course, to put some money behind it and get your message across to your specific audience. So you need to allocate a certain percentage of the P&L to marketing for China. And then the WeChat, you treat that as a typical social media account, similar to like LinkedIn. A lot of people are thinking it's like LinkedIn. They do shorter articles, or they have like a newsfeed way of thinking. So, and that WeChat is the solution to everything. Unfortunately, that is not the case. You need to work with other platforms as well. And then short-term gains. Everyone, of course, wants the in and out, high ROIs. No one would be happier than me if that would be the case. However, you need to think long-term on this. And sometimes you might be lucky and you can get some short-term gains within 3 to 6 months, and you see this lead gen campaign actually worked out quite well. But it should not be the assumption that would be the case. So you need to think long-term. So final reflections, some key takeaways. Digital is a foundation. It's like a necessary must-have for industrial companies working with China. It's something that you cannot ignore. It's not a nice thing to have. It's really a must-have. And it's really important to have understand, what do we write, what do we say, what do we claim, what do we do from a governance point of view. Offline must be integrated with digital, QR codes for all the trade shows, to offline to online. Content builds trust. So here you should develop content that is China for China. You can, of course, in the beginning use what you have, but long-term definitely develop specific material for the Chinese market. China is a long-term play. Mention it just here, so no need to repeat. And then execution matters more than strategy, because here it also, some do have a strategy, some doesn't have a strategy. You still, of course, need to have a strategy, but the strategy will never be better than the way you actually execute it and implement it. So we see so many times also that someone is just doing a lot of stuff because they think if we do a lot of stuff on mix of platforms, then it will turn out good. That is for sure not the case. Quality over quantity. Typical example, a lot of companies that might ask the distributor or local commercial team in China to do their WeChat. Because this a lot of people probably can relate to. Then they say, yeah, but we publish 8 times a month stuff. Most likely, they should only publish 2 times per month. But then they spend so much time of developing assets and they just push them out, but no one reads them because they don't spend any money to promoting it with ads. So then they spend a lot of internal time in-house to develop these articles that tend to be quite good sometimes, but no one really reads them. So they can have read quantity that is like 50, 20 reads maybe, and they have almost no followers on their account. Then there's a waste of resource allocation. So yeah, final saying there. So execution matters, very, very important. And then start small compared to big. And then start small and scale as you see proof of concept and that you see that it's actually working for you. But have a clear idea of what you should do short term, mid term, and long term. Yes. Thank you.